Hello, everyone. This is Jean-Baptiste with Kihew Designs. I am here at Omineca Arts Centre on unceded Lheidli T'enneh territory. Today is the day I'm going to be taking down my exhibit, um, First Nation Sovereignty and Dissent. And yeah, I wanted to go live and show everyone just kind of how the gallery went and how everything is looking before it all gets taken down. So thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, and we will get the tour started. So we're going to start with first piece called Reclaiming Vines. This is a piece that was created as part of a commission with the Health Initiative for Men as part of their Summit 2020. Um, I believe it's kind of like it's a health conference for queer men's health, and so they commissioned this piece called Reclaiming Vines. The second piece here is Two Wolves. So this is beading in acrylic on a chest binder. And this is was created as a reflection on my journey of coming to love and accept my post-surgical chest and just like, my chest journey. So yeah, just rethinking about a lot of the traditional medicines along with just some of the modern interventions that we utilize. The third piece is Red Hand, Lost in Flowers, and this was as a response to thinking about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people, especially being on the Highway of Tears in the north. And this piece is red chalk paint on black black velvet and seed beads, and it's strung to a wooden frame. Yeah, and so like this, I really wanted to utilize a lot of the flora and fruits and things like that I've medicines that are really close to my heart in the north here. So a lot of strawberries, some rose hips, some wild roses, some buttercups, which I used a lot as a child, not necessarily for medicinal purposes, but just because I love them and they're a really big part of my healing journey. Yeah, and so that is the first wall. We're going to journey over to the other side of the gallery. So these are huckleberry cuffs. I feel comfortable touching these because they are mine. But as you can see, these are fully beaded cuffs, and this was thinking about regalia, like what is regalia and reclaiming it. There's also a lot to be said about how regalia has been regulated over the years as a result of colonization and how people really didn't have sovereignty over what they were able to put on their bodies. And that really impacted the ways that we interact with our bodies and how we display ourselves and how we want to engage in sacredness. And yeah, and so like I wanted to really contrast that that experience of such colonial violence with consensual bondage and really having sovereignty over what you put on your body and how you engage with it and having a lot of trusting relationships with it. And so, yeah, I thought that this would be like a really interesting piece to create. And yeah, of course, I'm bringing in huckleberries because I have a lot of really fond memories um, of berry gathering with a lot of my friends and my loved ones. And now we're getting into the pasties series. So this is one of the first ones that I created, and these are my pride pasties. These are beads on Melton wool, and yeah, I wanted to capture being like a two-spirit person and engaging in like really this came from my experience of doing burlesque with Guandoc Theater in Whitehorse in the Yukon. And yeah, so I really wanted to create some like figure out like what is regalia in a burlesque fashion, what is how do you indigenize costumery and how do you do it in a way that is still sacred and beautiful and is not like the shitty Pocahontas that gets put forth every year as part of Halloween. And so this to me is like a really big reclamation piece. And also just like the sacredness of the story of the Wet'suwet'en word for two-spirit people is Dade Atsten. We created it like 2 years ago because the traditional word was lost. And I spent many, many years trying to find it. And, eventually myself, Mal Basil, and Chief Timberwolf, we created a new word, Dissent, which means people of the rainbow. And so, yeah, this is kind of a piece that comes from all of those experiences. And the second in the pasty series, they once again, huckleberries. This is one of my favorite motifs. Honestly, I really love using the like this really beautiful deep burgundy color with the blue and the greens and the silver. Like it's one of my favorite color combinations, and this is once again as part of reflections of being a burlesque dancer and how to engage in costumery, but also how we engage with the land and how the dissociation from land as a result of colonization of that violence of being removed from your land and from your territory, how that's such a deep part of reconnecting with yourself, and yeah, how it's such a beautiful journey. The next one is my tree pasties. I absolutely love these because I've been dabbling a lot more in painting and using acrylic. And, I wanted something that had a little bit more texture to it. I wanted something to be like, not like your traditional pasty, but something just like a little bit different. And so what happened is, I'll see if I can bring it up closer too. So the center is painted, and then the outside, the bark piece, is beaded to create sort of that bark rough texture. And I was thinking just about like how, especially around like nipples and how there's so much nipple shaming, not just like especially for women, like very specifically for women, femme-identifying peoples around like the size of their areola or like what is the color, and like, oh my gosh, I remember that experience of it being so shameful. And I really wanted to change and think about like, well, what are some other sacred circular things that are like not Madonna Madonna cone boobs, but like this connection to like trees and to nature, and how all of that is really sacred, and all parts of ourselves are sacred. And then this last piece, once again getting more into thinking about kink and fetish, and like what is reclaiming pleasure and what is reclaiming body autonomy and sovereignty, is these flower clamps. And so yeah, these came from being in the BDSM community and really reflecting on meaningful conversations of consent, and having worked in a lot of smaller reserves where sexuality is really shamed, conversations around queerness and pleasure and all of those things are really, really complicated and have a lot of intergenerational trauma that are kind of, you need to be really mindful of. And it's really hard to have those conversations in a trauma-informed way, and also kind of bring people to a place of having conversations around pleasure and like what are non-traditional ways of doing it, because the specific kinds of sexuality was violently enforced upon Indigenous peoples. Like, if we think about where the term missionary position came from, and how a lot of our sexual ways of being were changed, and gotten rid of as a result of these really violent ways of being, and it got transformed into a lot of trauma. And so, yeah, this was sitting and thinking about like my journey around understanding pleasure and consent, and like really deeply understanding consent didn't come from queer spaces, and it didn't come from Indigenous spaces. It came from kink places and community. So, and at the same time, those communities, there isn't a lot of representation of BIPOC people, like no representation of Indigenous people, and when it is, it's highly, highly fetishized. Like you see like BBC and a lot of things around like having brown nips and that kind of thing. So yeah, I wanted to like re-indigenize in a way that felt really beautiful and really like claiming space. So yeah, that's where this piece came from. And we have two more, so we're going to quickly see the stage, all the really lovely, here we are, Omineca Arts Centre. They're fantastic promo materials. And they also have lots of other artists who are here presenting as well. We're actually going to be going outside for these last two pieces. So here we have two contrasting pieces. The one in the far back is I wonder if I can, there we go, beautiful. So that is a beaded impact toy, and so the whole handle is beaded, and it's, there we go, I wonder if you can see it a little bit better, with this fire gradient. And so when I think about impact play, and when I think about ways of connecting to body and to self and consent, like that particular way of engaging with play is really related to like fire, and it's really invigorating because it brings up like a lot of dopamine and serotonin, and it's this really intense and beautiful experience. And so, and of course with the black leather, it's interesting because in that community we use a lot of the same materials to create things. Like regalia uses a lot of beadwork and leather, and so does a lot of the items and implementations in the kink community. And so I wanted to like really think about that. And the other piece is this beautiful one down here. So this was created directly in contrast with the fire flogger. And so this is my water sensory toy. So this technically is an impact toy, but it is used in a very different way. It's a lot more gentle. There's a lot. It's more of a sensory experience, and I relate that a lot more to water and engaging with self and sacredness in that kind of way, because sacredness comes in so many different forms. And yeah, so I wanted to create something that held a really similar sacred space, but also brought about from a very different experience. So yeah, we're gonna head back inside. Actually, that's completely a lie. So my, here we go, we'll bring that up. So my artist in residency is done with Omineca Arts Centre, and the next thing that I'm going to be doing in September, still with Omineca, is through BC Culture Days. I'm one of the ambassadors, and we're going to be doing a medicine pouch making workshop on September 29th from 3 to 7 p.m. Here we go. We have all the information, as you can see, here at Omineca Arts Centre at 369 Victoria Street. It's right beside Exit. And yeah, so here we're going to be doing a lot of medicine pouch making. All the supplies are going to be provided, but really it's not to use tobacco or sage, but it's to think about what is our personal medicine, and what are things that we want to fill our pouches with, especially after a year of isolation and really needing some time to connect with one another. It's going to be in person, so we are going to be abiding by COVID rules. There's going to be masks, hand sanitizer available, and there's going to be seating available, which is going to be spaced out about 6 feet apart. So here we're going to head back inside because it is a little bit windy, and I hope the sound quality is maintaining. All right, so hello, once again, it is me. So thank you everyone for joining this live. This is the final showing of Thirst Nation, Sovereignty, and Dissent. Today is the day that all of this is going to be taken down, so wanted to have this recorded and have a last opportunity for people to look at the gallery. So thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you have a really great rest of your day.